The room was dark, loud, and full of strange smells. Maya stood quietly in a line with other humans, her hands tied in front of her. The floor was cold metal, and the walls had glowing alien symbols above them. Aliens of all shapes and sizes sat on high seats, watching like they were choosing food from a menu. Maya's heart beat fast. She didn't understand what they were saying, but she knew she was being sold. She had been captured weeks ago from a research ship. Now she was nothing but a product in a slave auction. One alien shouted something and another laughed. Maya looked around at the others. There were 6 humans in total. 2 women and 4 men. Some cried, some stood frozen. Guards in black armor walked slowly between them, holding strange electric rods. A voice echoed through the room, deep and rough. It came from a large creature with green skin and 4 eyes. He was the auction master, and he raised his hand to begin. The first human, a tall man, was pulled forward. The crowd cheered and made strange noises. The auction master began the bidding, and the numbers appeared in the air, floating as light in less than 2 minutes. The man was sold, dragged away by a thin alien with red eyes. Then came the second and the third. Maya watched them disappear one by one. Each time someone was sold, her fear grew deeper. What kind of life would she be sold into? Would she become a servant or something worse? When it was her turn, the room became quiet. She was pushed into the center. The lights focusing on her face, she felt small and weak, wearing torn clothes and no shoes. She looked up at the crowd, trying to stay strong. But instead of starting the bid, the auction master paused. He tilted his head, studying her. A few aliens whispered to each other, confused. Then the auction master said something in his language, and the translator device nearby gave the words in English. This one. Not normal. She carries something rare. Special energy. Maya didn't understand. She looked around, scared. Special energy. What did that mean? The crowd grew louder, some arguing, others backing away. Suddenly, one of the aliens stood up, a tall being covered in silver armor. With glowing blue marks on his skin, he said only one word. Mine. The room fell silent. The auction master looked surprised but said nothing. The price screen appeared above Maya, higher than all the others. No one else bid, no one dared. The armored alien stepped forward, gave a small nod and pointed toward Maya. Guards unlocked her chains and handed her over. As Maya walked beside the alien, she looked up and asked softly, "Who are you?" The alien didn't answer. He touched a small device on his wrist, and in a flash of light, they both disappeared from the auction hall. They appeared inside a spaceship, dim and quiet. Maya backed away, her hands shaking. "Why did you buy me?" she asked, her voice dry from fear. The alien looked at her, his voice deep and calm. "You're not a slave," he said. "You were in danger. So I took you." Maya's eyes widened. "Then who are you?" The alien paused, then removed his helmet underneath. His face looked almost human, but his eyes were silver and his skin had soft, glowing lines. "My name is Kale," he said. "I'm not like the others." Maya stared at him, confused. "What do you want from me?" Kale turned and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Nothing," he replied. "But I think your life is about to change." Behind them, the ship made a strange sound. Something was wrong. Kale rushed to the control panel, pressing buttons quickly. Maya held onto a railing as the ship shook. "What's happening?" she cried. Kale looked back at her, his voice sharp. "We've been tracked." "Hold on." The ship jumped into light speed, but it was unstable. Alarms screamed, lights blinked, and the ship started breaking apart. Kale ran to Maya and held her tightly. "If we crash," he said, "stay close to me." The last thing Maya saw was a flash of fire and a planet rushing toward them. Then darkness. Maya opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt, her lips were dry, and her whole body felt heavy. The world around her was silent but not peaceful. She was lying on red sand, her back pressed against warm stone. Above her, 3 suns burned in the sky, each a different color. She sat up slowly, coughing. Pieces of metal were scattered everywhere. A large part of the spaceship was half buried in the ground. "Still smoking, Kale," she whispered. Looking around, no answer, no sign of him. The wind blew gently, carrying a strange smell, like fire and flowers mixed together. The planet felt empty but also alive. Her hands trembled as she stood, dust covering her clothes and hair. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to walk. She called again, louder this time. "Kale?" Suddenly, something moved behind a rock. She stopped, heart pounding. Was it him? Or something else? A shape stepped out, tall and slow. It wasn't Kale. It was a creature with green skin, long arms, and black eyes. It made a low humming noise as it sniffed the air. Maya held her breath and took a step back. The creature turned its head, staring at her. Then, without warning, it ran, disappearing into the hills. She didn't know whether to feel relief or fear. Whatever this place was, she wasn't alone. She searched the crash site, finding only broken wires, bent doors, and part of Kale's armor. No body, no blood, just nothing. Her throat tightened. Had he died in the crash? Had he been taken? The planet's sky started changing. Shades of orange and purple rolled across the clouds. The suns began to sink slowly, and with them came a sudden chill in the air. She knew night was coming, and fast Maya found a broken panel and used it as shelter, sitting beneath it to escape the wind. As she sat alone watching the sky, her eyes filled with tears. She had survived a slave auction, escaped on a spaceship, and now she was lost on a dead planet. She pulled her knees close, whispering to herself, "Don't cry, Maya. You're still alive." Suddenly, she heard a faint sound, a deep, slow hum. Her eyes shot up. The sand near the ship began to glow softly, like something under it was alive. She stood up and followed the glowing path. It led her past the broken engine and toward a nearby rock formation. And there, half covered in sand, was Kale. Unconscious, barely breathing, Kale. She cried, running to him. She brushed the sand from his face. His silver eyes were closed, and his body was cut and bruised, but he was alive. She used part of her shirt to clean his wounds. His skin was warm but weak. He groaned softly, trying to open his eyes. "It's me, Maya," she whispered. "You saved me." Kyle opened his eyes slowly, voice dry. "You okay?" She nodded, smiling through tears. "Yes, I'm okay, thanks to you." He looked around slowly. "Planet, dangerous, night, stay hidden." Maya helped him sit up. He winced in pain, but his eyes remained alert. "Creatures, hunt at night," he said. "We must move. Together." They limped toward a nearby rock cave. The path was rough, and Kale leaned on Maya for support. Even injured, he tried to walk ahead, protecting her. As they entered the cave, the temperature dropped even lower. Kyle pulled a small glowing stone from his pocket. Placing it on the ground, soft light filled the cave. Keeping the darkness away, they sat together, cold and exhausted. Kale rested against the wall while Maya watched the cave entrance. Outside, the sky had turned dark blue, and distant howls echoed through the air. "What are those things?" Maya asked quietly. Kale looked at her with tired eyes. "Night beasts. Shadows with teeth. They feed on sound." Maya shivered, pulling her arms around her body. She had never felt this kind of fear. Not in space, not during the auction. Not even in the crash. This was deeper. She looked at Kale again. His armor was broken, his face pale, but his eyes still held strength. "Why did you save me?" she asked softly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the glowing stone, then back at her. "You are different," he said. "You didn't scream. You didn't beg." Maya blinked. "You watched me at the auction." He nodded slowly. "I saw your eyes," he said. "Strong, like stars before they die." She didn't know what that meant, but something about it felt real. In the silence that followed, Kale reached into his belt and handed her a small device. "Translator," he said. "Keep it close. If I don't make it..." "Don't say that," Maya whispered, holding the device tightly. "You're not going to die." Outside, the howling grew louder, closer. Maya leaned closer to Kale, their shoulders touching. The cave was small, cold, and lonely. But for the first time, she didn't feel alone. They had no ship, no map, and no plan. But they had each other, and somewhere deep in her heart, Maya felt something new. Not fear, not pain, but hope. The cave was silent except for the soft sound of breathing. Kyle sat with his back against the wall. Eyes half closed, Maya stayed close beside him, watching the entrance. Outside, the wind howled, cold and sharp. But it wasn't the wind that scared her, it was the shadows. Kale had called them night beasts, creatures that hunted sound, light and fear. Maya didn't know what they looked like. She only knew what she could feel, that something was out there, moving, waiting, listening. The glowing stone on the cave floor flickered softly. Cale opened his eyes and looked at it, then at her. When the stone dies, they come, he said slowly. Maya swallowed hard. How long will it last? Cale touched the stone gently. Not long. He looked weaker now, his skin pale and his breathing heavy. Maya knew he needed real medical help, but they had nothing. A strange noise echoed outside, like a growl made of metal. Maya froze. The sound came again, closer this time. Cale reached for the broken piece of his armor beside him and pulled out a small silver blade. He handed it to her. Use only. If no choice, she stared at the knife in her hand. It felt too light to protect anyone. But she nodded, hiding it under her shirt. Then suddenly, the light from the glowing stone blinked once. Then again, Cale sat up straighter. They're near, he whispered. Maya moved closer to him, heart pounding in her chest. Outside the cave, she could hear footsteps. But they weren't normal. They were soft, like sand being touched by feathers. Then nothing, silence, but not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels watched. Cale closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He whispered something in his own language. Words Maya couldn't understand. Then he opened his eyes and said, They wait for fear, Maya whispered back. Then we don't give them any. A few minutes passed. The cave grew darker. The stone light now only a faint glow. Suddenly the wind stopped. Maya noticed it right away. Complete stillness. No sound, no movement, even her breath felt loud. Then, from the corner of the cave, black smoke started to rise. It wasn't from fire, it moved like a living thing, crawling up the walls, sliding along the ground. Maya grabbed Cale's arm. The smoke turned into a shape, a shadow with eyes. Not glowing eyes, but empty ones. Like holes in space, it didn't walk, it flowed. And more followed it, at least 3 of them. Maybe more hiding in the dark. Cale tried to stand, but fell. He was too weak. Maya held him up, pulling him behind her, her hands shaking. The creatures didn't attack right away. They seemed to study her, tilting their heads, breathing in the air like they were tasting fear. One of them moved closer. Maya stepped back. The knife in her shirt felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Then suddenly, something fell from her pocket. The translator Cale had given her. It hit the stone floor and made a sharp clink. The moment the sound echoed, the creatures screamed. It wasn't a normal scream. It was cold and high and full of hunger. They rushed forward in a blur of shadows. Maya didn't think. She grabbed the knife and slashed at the air. The blade passed through one of the creatures, but instead of cutting it, the shadow exploded into black smoke and vanished. The others hissed and backed away. Cale reached for his belt and pulled out something, a small orb with strange marks. He rolled it across the cave floor. When it stopped, it began to glow. Brighter and brighter, the light filled the cave. Pushing the shadows back, the creatures screamed again and vanished into the walls. Silence returned. Only the orb glowed now, a soft blue light keeping the cave safe. Maya dropped the knife, her hands shaking. Cale coughed and smiled weakly. You fight like fire. She looked at him, surprised. I was scared. He nodded slowly. That's what makes it brave. They sat in silence again. Listening to the quiet outside, Maya kept her eyes on the cave entrance. I thought they would kill us, she said softly. Cale replied. They don't want death. They want weakness. Maya looked at the orb. Will that keep them away? Cale nodded. For one night, she leaned against the wall beside him. Her body still shaking, her heart still racing, but somewhere inside, something had changed. She had faced the monsters of the dark, and she was still here, and so was Cale. They weren't just survivors anymore, they were fighters together. As the light of the orb warmed the cave, Maya finally closed her eyes. She didn't sleep because she was tired. She slept because, for the first time, she felt safe. The night passed slowly. Maya didn't sleep much. Even though the glowing orb kept the shadows away, the fear still sat inside her chest like a heavy stone. But Cale needed rest, and she stayed awake to protect him. By morning, the sky turned a soft yellow. The cave felt a little warmer, but still cold. Cale stirred and opened his eyes. He looked weak, his skin pale and his breath slow. You need help, Maya said gently. Cale nodded slowly. There's something in my pod. Medicine. Maya stood up without hesitation. Then I'll find it. She took Kyle's broken weapon, tied it to her back, and stepped outside. The landscape looked endless, just hills of red sand, broken rocks, and patches of strange glowing plants. She followed the crash trail, her eyes scanning the ground for anything shiny. After 20 minutes, she found it, Kale's escape pod, half buried under a cracked boulder. She climbed inside, coughing from the dust. The air smelled like burned wires and old metal. She dug through the wreckage, tossing aside broken armor and old tools. Then she found a small black case. It had glowing symbols on it, and when she opened it, small glass tubes with blue liquid shimmered inside. She grabbed all of them and rushed back. Inside the cave, Kale looked worse. His eyes were barely open. "I found it," she said, kneeling beside him. She didn't know how to use alien medicine, but one of the tubes had a simple symbol, a heart with a spark. She took a deep breath and pressed the small needle into his arm. The liquid went in fast, and Kale's body shook for a moment. Then, his breathing calmed, his color slowly returned. "You did well," Kale whispered, his voice stronger. Maya smiled, wiping sweat from her forehead. "You're not dying today." For the first time, he smiled back. It wasn't a big smile, just a soft one, but it made Maya feel warm inside. They sat together in silence for a while. Outside, the suns climbed high into the sky, painting the world in gold and fire. Kale spoke slowly. "I was trained never to trust humans." Maya looked at him, surprised. "Why?" Kale touched the glowing lines on his arm. "My people were hunted by yours." Maya lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." Kale shook his head. "You didn't do it." He looked at her again. "But you stayed when I was weak." Maya smiled softly. "You stayed when I was afraid." There was a pause, and then she asked, "Why did you leave your people?" Kale looked at the cave ceiling, his face calm but his eyes sad. "I was a soldier, fought in a war I didn't believe in, saw children cry, planets burn." He paused. "One day I stopped fighting. They called me a traitor." Maya reached out and touched his hand. Kale didn't pull away. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence wasn't heavy, it was gentle, like the space between two heartbeats. Outside, the wind began to blow. Maya stood and said, "We need food." Kale nodded. "Follow the glowing plants. They lead to water." They left the cave together, slowly walking toward the hills. Kale still limped, but Maya stayed close as they climbed. They talked about Earth, about Kale's home, about small things like music and food. Maya told him she missed chocolate. Kale said he had never tasted anything sweet. When they reached the top of a hill, Maya gasped. Below them was a green valley, hidden between the rocks. Strange fruit trees with blue leaves, a stream of silver water, and small flying creatures with glass wings danced in the air. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered. Kyle looked at her. "Yes," he said. "So are you." She turned to him. Surprised, he looked away quickly. "I mean, your soul?" Maya laughed softly. "No one ever said that to me before." They walked down to the stream, drank water, and picked fruits. Kale taught her how to open the fruit safely. It had tiny seeds that could burn skin if touched wrong. Maya learned fast, and Kale was impressed. As the suns began to set again, they built a small shelter near the stream using broken ship parts. They sat close, wrapped in a thermal blanket, sharing the last fruit. Kale looked at the stars. "Do you think your people will find you?" Maya shook her head. "They think I'm dead." Kale nodded slowly. "So do mine." She looked at him. "Maybe that's not so bad." He turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" Maya smiled gently. "It means we can start new." Kale stared into her eyes. There was something soft there, something fragile and real. Slowly, he leaned forward and rested his forehead against hers. "No war," he whispered. "No fear," she answered. They sat that way for a long time, the stars watching above on a lonely planet. Two broken souls had found something rare, not just safety but connection, and in that moment, the bond between them truly began. The wind whispered softly through the valley. 3 suns painted the sky in shades of orange. Pink and deep gold. Maya sat beside Kale near the quiet stream, their shelter half finished behind them. Bird-like creatures with glowing feathers flew low across the water. The moment was peaceful, but only on the outside. Inside her heart, Maya felt something shifting. Kale was not just an alien anymore. He had become her protector, her friend, and maybe something more. Kale sat quietly, sharpening a flat stone into a tool. His hands moved with calm skill, but his mind seemed far away. Maya looked at him, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. "Kyle," she said softly. He glanced up. Yes, do your people. Feel love? She asked, unsure if she should say the word. Kale paused. He looked into her eyes and said, Not like humans, but yes, we feel something like it. Stronger, what's it called? She whispered. Kale placed the stone tool down, thinking for a moment. We call it Ankai, he said. It means soul merging. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. Have you ever felt it? He shook his head slowly. No, until now. Silence filled the space between them again. But it wasn't awkward, it was warm, full of meaning. Maya moved closer. The silver lines on Kyle's skin began to glow faintly, reacting to her nearness. She reached out and touched one of the glowing lines on his arm. It pulsed softly under her fingers like a heartbeat. Why does it glow? She asked. Kale smiled gently. It responds to truth. And to touch. They sat like that for a long time. Hands touching, hearts beating, no words needed. Then Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. Kale didn't move, but his breath deepened, and the lines on his skin glowed brighter. As night came, they returned to the shelter. The stars above were brighter than any sky Maya had ever seen. They lay side by side under the thermal blanket, listening to the wind and each other's breath. I never imagined this, Maya whispered. Kale turned his head slightly. Imagine what? That I'd fall for someone from another world, she said with a nervous smile. Kale looked into her eyes, his voice calm. Maybe. Love doesn't care about worlds. Maya reached up and touched his face. I don't know what happens next, she said. Kale gently placed his hand over hers. Then we walk into the unknown together. They kissed. Soft and slow, not out of passion, but out of deep connection. It was not a human kiss and not an alien one. It was something between, something new that night. Their bond grew stronger, deeper, real. Two broken souls finding warmth in a cold, forgotten world, but the planet had other plans. The next morning, the ground shook gently beneath them. A deep, low rumble like thunder echoed across the valley. Maya sat up quickly. What was that? Kale stood, eyes sharp. Tremor, he said. This planet is not fully stable. They packed quickly and moved higher into the hills. From above they saw the stream split open, hot steam rising from a long crack in the ground. Earthquake? Maya asked. Kale shook his head. No. The planet is waking. As they walked, Maya felt dizzy. Her legs trembled and her stomach felt strange. Kale noticed right away. You're pale, he said. Helping her sit under a tall rock, Maya took a deep breath. I've felt strange since yesterday. Hot, then cold, and tired. Kale looked worried. He gently placed his hand over her stomach, then pulled out a small device and scanned her. His eyes widened. He looked at her in shock. Maya, you're... She stared at him. What? Tell me. Kale took a long breath. You're pregnant. Maya froze. Her hands moved slowly over her belly. That's not possible, she whispered. Kale shook his head. Your body and mine. They matched in ways I didn't expect, but... Already? She said, confused. Kale explained softly. My kind. Bonds form fast. Life forms faster. Maya looked at the sky, her thoughts racing. Everything inside her twisted. Fear, surprise, wonder, and something else. She looked at Kale. Are you afraid? He didn't answer for a moment, then he said, Yes, but also honored. Maya took his hand in hers. I don't know how this happened, or what it means. But I know one thing. Kale looked into her eyes. What? I won't leave you. And I won't leave this child. Kale pulled her close. The wind blew softly around them. And in the ruins of a broken planet, love had bloomed, strange, sudden, and strong not by accident but by fate. The air was heavy, not just with heat, but with something deeper, something unspoken. Maya sat near the edge of a cliff, staring down at the quiet valley below. Her hand rested gently on her stomach, still flat but already different. Kale stood a few steps behind her, silent, unsure of what to say. They had built a small shelter under tall, purple-leaved trees. The days had become warmer, and the nights, stranger. The stars no longer felt peaceful. They felt like eyes watching. Kale broke the silence first. You need food, rest, safety? Maya nodded, not turning around. I don't even know what's growing inside me. Kyle stepped closer. Life, he said softly. Part of you, part of me. She turned toward him. her face serious. What if it's not safe? Kale knelt beside her. My people, we don't have stories of this. No human and my kind have ever. He stopped, struggling with the words. Mixed, Maya finished for him. Kale nodded. I don't regret it, Maya said quietly. But I'm scared. Kale reached into his satchel and pulled out a glowing crystal. He placed it against her chest, just above her heart. The light pulsed gently. This is an old gift from my people, he said. It tells the truth of life. Maya looked down. Inside the crystal, tiny flickers danced like stars. One small light glowed brighter than the others, warm and gold. That's the child, Kale whispered, alive. Strong. A tear slipped down Maya's cheek. Her fear didn't vanish, but something inside her began to settle. It was real, the child was real. Later that day, Kale went hunting. He told Maya to stay hidden, not to answer any sounds except his voice. Maya stayed inside the shelter, her fingers brushing over her belly every few minutes. But hours passed and Kale didn't return. The wind picked up, the sky turned gray, and the birds vanished. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, a strange whistle echoed from the trees. Not a bird, not Kale. Maya grabbed the broken blade Kale had given her and crouched low. The bushes nearby rustled, and a tall shadow moved just beyond the trees. Kyle. She called softly. No answer. Then again, whistle, rustle, silence. She stepped out slowly, knife shaking in her hand. Every part of her body screamed, run. But something stronger pulled her forward. A shape appeared, humanoid, but wrong. It stepped into view, covered in dark armor, with blinking lights on its helmet. Not one of Kale's kind, not human either. It turned its head toward her, scanning. Then it raised a metal staff glowing at the end. Maya stepped back. Stay away, she warned, voice shaking. The creature didn't speak. Instead, it activated a small screen, and on it she saw herself. A grainy video of her being pulled from the auction floor. Then another, Kale holding her hand near the stream. They're watching, she whispered. The soldier stepped closer. Maya turned and ran. Through the trees, across rocks. Her breath sharp and fast. She slipped once, fell, and rolled but kept moving. Then she saw Kale, running toward her from the other side, blood on his face, but alive. Maya, he shouted. She ran into his arms. They found us, she said breathlessly. I saw a video. They know about us. Kyle looked over her shoulder, eyes narrowing. They are hunters, he said. Not from my world, not from yours. What do they want? She asked. Kale's voice darkened. Rare blood, hybrid DNA. They take it? Sell it. Maya held her belly. They want the baby. Kale nodded. We must leave this place. They returned to the shelter only long enough to grab a few supplies. Kale pressed a code into a device and dropped it on the ground. It exploded in light, burning their tracks behind them. By nightfall, they had reached an old ruin deep in the cliffs, a broken alien temple covered in vines and moss. Kale pushed open a cracked stone door and led her inside. This place is sacred, he whispered. No one hunts here. They lit a fire inside the ruin, the warmth fighting off the night chill. Maya leaned against Kale's chest. I'm so tired, she whispered. Kale kissed her forehead gently. You're strong. He placed his hand on her belly. A soft glow passed from his palm to her skin. What's that? She asked, surprised. Protection, he said. My gift to our child. As Maya drifted into sleep, Kyle stayed awake, his weapon in hand, eyes on the door. He didn't care about war or orders anymore. He only cared about her, and the life growing between them. The sun rose over the ruined temple. Its warm light touched the broken stones, the vines, and the two figures standing at the edge. Kale had not slept all night. He kept watch while Maya rested, her hand over her stomach. He knew the hunters would return. They had seen too much, and the life inside Maya was something the galaxy would fight to control. Maya woke with a quiet sigh. Kale was already packing supplies, tools, food, water, and weapons. We can't stay, he said, voice low. They'll track us again. Maya stood slowly, her body already heavier than before. She placed a hand on the old stone wall, catching her balance. And where will we go? Kale looked to the sky. I sent a signal last night. To someone I once trusted. If they come, it'll be today. Can we trust them? She asked. Kale's eyes narrowed. I don't know. Suddenly, a loud hum shook the air. A ship broke through the clouds, dark and sharp like a blade. It landed on a flat clearing beyond the temple. Kicking up dust and wind, Kale pulled Maya behind a stone pillar. "That's not my contact," he whispered. As the dust cleared, 6 figures stepped out, tall, armed. Maya gripped Kale's hand. "Are they your people?" "No," he said. "They're worse." One of the figures stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. "Kale of the Silver Scar," he said coldly. "You broke the law of separation. You mixed your blood with human filth." Kale stepped out, shielding Maya with his body. "I saved her," he said. "I loved her. Love is not law," the soldier snapped. "The child she carries is property of the Galactic Council." Maya stepped forward, her voice strong. "I'm not your property, and neither is my baby." Another soldier raised a stun weapon. Kale moved fast, placing himself between Maya and danger. "She is under my protection," he growled. The leader of the group stared at them. "You have 2 choices," he said. "Surrender the child, or die with her." Kale looked at Maya. He had faced war, death, betrayal. But this was the moment that truly mattered. He didn't care about law, honor, or exile anymore. He only cared about her. Kale slowly raised his hands. "Let her go," he said. "I'll come with you." "No," Maya gasped. Grabbing his arm, Kale whispered, "If they think I've surrendered, they might let you escape." The leader nodded. "Step forward." Kale walked slowly toward them. The moment their weapons dropped slightly, he acted with one swift motion. He pulled a glowing orb from his belt and slammed it to the ground. A blast of light exploded outward, blinding everyone. "Run!" he shouted. Maya turned and fled into the trees, her legs shaking, tears blinding her eyes. Behind her she heard blasts, screams, metal clashing, and Kale's voice shouting in a language she didn't know. She didn't stop running, not until the noise faded, and the only sound was her breath and the wind, then silence. She fell to her knees beside a glowing tree. "Kyle," she whispered, "please come back." A few minutes passed, then a rustling in the trees. She turned sharply, ready to fight. But it wasn't a soldier. It was Kale, covered in dirt and blood, but alive. He dropped to his knees in front of her. "I promised," he said, smiling weakly. "I'd walk into the unknown with you," Maya cried as she held him. "Let's go somewhere they'll never find us." Kale reached into his pack and pulled out a small black key. "I stole their ship," he said with a grin. "We're going home, but we don't have a home," she said softly. Kale placed her hand over his heart. "We do now." 1 month later, small ship drifted near the edge of a quiet galaxy. Inside it, Maya sat in a circle of soft lights, her belly now round and glowing slightly. Kale stood nearby, adjusting wires and fixing the radar. The ship wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. They had no flag, no planet, no army. But they had each other, and soon, they would have something more. A child born of 2 worlds. A symbol of what the galaxy feared most. Hope. Kale sat beside Maya and placed his hand on her belly. "She kicks strong," he whispered. Maya smiled. Just like her father, they watched the stars in silence. No more running, no more fear, only the quiet promise of something new, and in the emptiness of space, that promise was everything.